Well, hey, Lighthouse, I am here with Christy, and Christy is our children's director for one day, actually. Congratulations. I think today is actually your official start day, even though you've been volunteering and really leading in children's ministry for a long time. But can I start by just saying we're really grateful that you're around and have a heart for training up the kids at Lighthouse.
Oh, I'm super excited.
Just start by telling us a little bit about your life situation right now, your background.
Yeah, so my husband James is in the Air Force and he's out here at the DLI studying Arabic. So that's what brought us out to California. Originally, I'm from Florida and he's from Georgia. Yeah, so that's what brought us here. We found Lighthouse because I was attending a Southern Baptist seminary, which required me to go to a Southern Baptist church, and there are few and far between out here. So
you were forced to go. Wow, we got to get that deal with
yeah. And we pulled up to Lighthouse the first Sunday that I was out here, and we were just welcomed in. Yeah. It was like immediate family. It was pretty awesome. We were like, this is where we're staying. We didn't have to check out any other churches. Yeah, we really felt loved by Lighthouse, by the community there.
You are well loved, and James is, just a wonderful man of God who's good with a Bible in his hands. And you guys have a real, like you have a heart for God really shaping your marriage and your marriage's future too. You're not kind of just doping around seeing what comes next. Like you guys have hopes and dreams in ministry.
Yeah. So we, when we first started dating, immediately we were like, if this is going to be something that God's doing, like this, we need to dedicate it to the Lord, right? When we started dating. And God led us to get married. And so our plan is to go overseas when James is done with the military commitment and do missions overseas. And we're super excited because we feel like every step of the way is just preparing us for that. And I mean, right here is a mission field too. So, yeah.
Well, and in your your current role, there's something like kids are kids. Like the older people get, the more cultural differences matter. But in the traveling I've done, whether it's Mexico or Ethiopia or wherever, like 4-year-olds are 4-year-olds. Like,
yeah.
I actually remember there's a second Ethiopia story I told today. There's another one in the sermon, but I remember being in a church in Ethiopia that was all in Amharic. We had no idea. Like, we're Christians, it's church. We understood what was going on, but obviously we didn't have any language at all. And so we're just kind of enjoying everybody else enjoying it. And right in front of us were two little boys, maybe like 5 or 6 years old. And one of them, you could tell his parents made him dress up. He's in a tie. And the other one's like in like camouflage jacket and jeans or something. And they're like pushing each other. And both their dads are like gripping them by the arm, like, calm down, we're at church. And I was like, man, that scene could happen in every culture. And kids respond. Well, let me ask you. I was about to say kids respond to grownups that love them, but is that what kids respond to? What is it that wins the heart of a kid?
I really think it's the work of the Spirit and the love of God. And I think kids can recognize that in adults probably easier than most adults can recognize it. It's, like some people are like cat people and like the cats are just drawn to them. Like some kids are just drawn to them. And I think it's really the love of Christ that the kids are seeing or experiencing through that person.
That's good. I'd never thought of it that way, but yeah, I think you're right. And I love that you connect that to, it's not just our own human, like, oh, I just kind of like kids, but it is like something that God grows in us. Yeah.
So,
that's excellent.
Especially kids all over the world, like you were saying, I don't know, kids don't know boundaries as much. Like, oh, you don't speak my language. Well, I can still hold your hand. So,
yeah. For sure. Piggyback rides are
Yeah.
that's teenagers. That's my favorite thing about mission trips with youth kids is teenagers and little kids get along really well. And it's always like soccer, piggyback rides, and like songs, with
Yeah.
motions and stuff. Those are the tools no matter where you are. So do you guys have hopes of where you might land? I mean, I realize the number one thing to never do is tell God exactly where you'll go and where you won't. But are there places that are higher on the list?
So when James applied for the military, he applied specifically for language school. And we both understood that like the military will assign you to a language. And so we're just like, whatever language he gets, like maybe that's a direction that the Lord is taking us. And so when he found out he was going to be learning Arabic, we were like, all right, here we go. So,
Wow.
and there's so much need for the gospel, especially in Muslim countries.
Yeah.
But we don't know where the Lord will take us with that really, but that might be a stepping stone.
Was there any part of you that was like, I hope he's learning whatever they speak in Fiji? Or something like that?
Oh, I don't know.
Someplace tropical.
No, I think we're both pretty much wherever.
You have a sense of adventure. You're like down for whatever God wants for you. You're good with having a good adventure.
Yeah. We hear about like different groups that travel and do missions like in different countries. And we're like, that'd be so fun, and then we just recently watched Free Burma Rangers. It's a documentary, and they just go into countries where there's a lot of refugees fleeing different countries. So they were doing it in Burma originally, and now they're in the Middle East. And so their whole family just travel and are doing this, like rescuing people. And that's like super hardcore. I don't know how comfortable I'd feel with something like that. But just the idea that we might not be building roots anywhere for super long, but wherever God takes us.
That's awesome. I have a friend who works with like nomadic peoples, and so he's in Northern Africa, I think, primarily, but all over Southern Europe, and there's no it would shock you how many nomadic people there are in the world. And every time I get a letter from him, there's just adventure all over the place. You're like, you were where? You're like, I have to wear a mask to go to Costco. Where did you go? That's awesome. Okay, so you also have not been passive in just saying, all right, God, whatever, but you guys have made decisions to join the military, to learn language, and then also you mentioned seminary. Tell us about that. What was that decision like?
Yeah, so I graduated college, and there were like two reasons for going to seminary. I wanted to get the credits required for the International Mission Board to like work with them, and they require, I think, 5 seminary classes. And I was like, well, I might as well get a degree while I'm doing seminary. I also wanted to study children's ministry because sharing the gospel with children is something that's a passion that God's given me. And so those are like the 2 biggest reasons I went to seminary. Unfortunately, the seminary I chose to go to didn't offer children's ministry as a degree, but they did have several classes. Well, they had one class on children's ministry specifically, and then they had like youth or family ministry classes. So I got to take those, which it was really good.
How connected is children's ministry to family ministry? Like, do you have a holistic view where it's like, hey, we have to be reaching whole families, or is it more just let's focus on the kids? And how would you talk about that?
So from my understanding, family ministry is more of a like holistic view of like the parents are the main. I mean, I feel like most churches have this understanding, but they don't practice church in a way. But like, so family ministry is the understanding that the parents are the main disciplers because they're with the kids day in and day out.
Yeah.
And that's where the kids really, they're learning the most spiritually wise from their parents, watching their parents. And so for family ministry, you'd be pouring a lot more into the parents and encouraging them to disciple their kids every day. And then I guess like a kids ministry is more focused on the kids, and it's like you have them for maybe an hour or 2 hours a week, depending on the church programs. And so it's just the difference. It could be a both and, which I think is mostly that's what it's like at Lighthouse, because we have awesome parents who are pouring into their kids. So
like what an understanding of, I would even say it like you are discipling your kids every day. Like they're watching, and I did youth ministry forever, and there's just no undoing home. Like there are kids that come from not from unbelieving homes that follow Christ and live godly lives, and there are kids that come from believing homes that reject the Lord. But that is what they are moving from. You know what I mean? That like not only foundation, but just that everyday influence. There's just no getting over it. So you're absolutely right that stuff has to start at home. A right understanding of God and God's love has to start at home, and then as it follows to church. Let's talk a little bit about, I like talking theology, so let's talk about like how a right understanding of God drives a church to children's ministry.
Yeah. So having a right understanding of God definitely drives a children's ministry. I'm just trying to think how to word it. So
well, we were talking earlier about how children's ministry is not something for the kids to do while actual church is happening.
Yeah. So yeah, children's ministry the goal is to teach the kids how to love and cherish God, how to worship Him. I think we see this in the Bible in the very beginning, in Genesis, when God, He makes Adam and Eve and He tells them to subdue the earth, to fill it. And I think that's more than just make more people. It's make followers of God and to make more disciples of God, essentially. I mean, they wouldn't have used that word in the Old Testament, but it's making more people to worship God. And then we see this in Deuteronomy as well, with they're giving the law to the people, especially Deuteronomy 6, where they're told, like the adults are told that they need to grow their relationship with the Lord and be faithful with the Lord. And that comes first. And then they're supposed to teach it to their children. And they're supposed to teach it to their children all the time. I have Deuteronomy 6 opened right here. I think it's verse 7. It says to repeat them to your children, talk about them when you sit in your house, when you walk along the road, when you lie down, when you get up. Bind them as a sign on your hand and let them be a symbol on your forehead. Write them on your doorposts of your house and on your gates. And so it's just the way of the Lord should be infused in everything, especially in a kid's life. And so then bringing that to our church, to the church, it just shows that like God values that people are being taught to worship Him, to love Him, and that includes children. Like God doesn't cut them out because they're too young to understand. It's God includes them because He wants them to grow up in His truth and in His ways.
Yeah, I would even go so far as to say, if you're going to list like what are the 2 or 3 or 4 like primary reasons why local church is important, it has to be as a community raising our children. We have such an individualistic idea in Western culture of like, well, you don't tell me what to do with my kids, and I'm not going to tell you what to do with your kids, and that's fine. But man, the amount, I can tell you, in the middle of raising 4 kids, the amount of support and encouragement and training that has come from Sunday school teachers has been beyond valuable as we've taken seriously the call to disciple our kids. And, I love you bringing up Deuteronomy 6. That's not like, hey, families do this. That's, hey,
Yeah.
culture do this.
Mhm.
Hey, the people of God need to be mindful that our faith is not going to get passed on by accident. We're going to have to, on purpose, say, what is it that we actually believe? Back to theology, like, what is it that is actually true? And then what is the most effective way to pass that on to our kids?
Yeah, it's
I
like the community of believers as the family, and all the children is everybody's responsibility to share the gospel with and to teach them how to worship God, how to love God through example and through teaching. There's so many ways, and kids are always watching.
Yeah. So how do we do that? How do we do that better? Children's ministry is hard. Like, not very many people are comfortable in a room full of kids, and quite frankly, not everybody's got the character and patience and whatever that we want them in a room full of kids. So, but how do we, like, what is the practical outpouring of, look, these are not other people's kids that are over in the other building and other people are caring for them, but that when we see kids running around the church, these are our children. And how do we do a good job with that?
How do we do a good job of that?
Yeah.
Well, I guess I could use my own life as an example because I don't have any kids right now. James and I have been married for like a year. We don't have kids yet. But one way that how I view the kids at church is that, like, I know that they're loved by God more than anyone could love them, and by their parents. And it's my responsibility as a follower of God to love them and to point them to Christ. And practical ways of doing that is just to know their names and to greet them. And kids are often really shy around adults. They'll hide behind their parents, whatever. But I really think it means a lot when you just say, hey, how are you doing? And just get on their level. If you have to crouch down or sit down, so like you're eye to eye with them, that just makes them feel more comfortable. And then interacting with them, not overlooking them just because they're small or they can't talk as well as we can, and showing that you care, care about what's going on in their lives.
That's excellent. I love that. Just to know, I'm like, to be known. And kids are pretty self-centered too. Like, that's how they view the world, is like, oh, do people like me or not? And so just to know somebody's a kid's name and tell them you're happy to see them at church, that's a very meaningful ministry. Then there's that next level of actually getting in the classroom and teaching. And what I think is tough about that is a lot of times the people who are most naturally able to do that are the ones that have kids that age, but they're the ones that most need a break too, that most need help in saying, I'm good with 4-year-olds because I have a 4-year-old, but what I would really love is to go to an adult Sunday school class and have somebody else help me train my 4-year-old for a while. So how do you know if you're called to children's ministry? I mean, I would love it if somebody right now, there was a burning in their heart and they were like, before this video is over, I'm gonna call Christy. But how do you know that you're called to children to help?
That's a good question. My answer, a lot of people might not like it, but like, if you're called to follow God, you're called to be a witness to Him, to all people of all ages. But not all people, like you had mentioned, have the patience to sit in there with kids for an hour. That's a good question, though.
Well, I think you're right to say, look, we're all called somewhere. And so if you're looking around going, well, where am I called? I'm not serving anywhere. Well, children's ministry might be the place for you.
And some people don't know. Some people don't know if that's something they're gifted in or not, if they don't try it. And I had an awesome experience at my old church in Raleigh, North Carolina, working with some volunteers at the children's church. And there was this one older volunteer. She didn't want to she didn't want to teach the kids at all. She just wanted to be present there.
Mm-hmm.
But she really had a lot of wisdom, and I was like, you really could teach these kids really well. And so I just encouraged her to teach something small, and then it got to where she really loved it.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes you just don't know if you don't try, if you don't step out of your comfort zone and see what God does, because you know that in my weakness, He is strong. And so in an area you may think I'm not capable of doing this, that's all the more opportunity for God to be more glorified through that.
For sure. And you know, the other thing that needs to be said out loud, kids are fun. Like they're a wreck. Like they'll totally, like, you'll be in the middle of a lesson where you think this is the greatest lesson ever, and these kids are obviously so lucky to be in my class, and then one of them will raise their hand and you'll say yes, and you're sure they're going to say, what a great teacher, I have deeper questions. But instead they go like, my dog's name is John, and you're like, okay.
Yeah.
And if you can kind of get over having to be in control of everything, you know, if you can just kind of let it happen. Yeah, there's structure and there's order, and you gotta, you know, keep kids on their carpet square or whatever. But if you can, like, just get the idea that this is primarily, as all ministry is, primarily relational work, and and hanging out with kids can be a very enjoyable way to spend a couple hours on a Sunday morning.
Yeah, you never know what you'll get to do as like working with kids, you know, like you'll time travel one week, and then next week you're going to be like walking in Jerusalem with all the kids, you know, or marching around Jericho. You never know where you'll be. So it's always fun. And you never know what the kids are going to say too. Like you always come home with like quotes of like, oh, this kid said this and this is pretty funny. So yeah,
that's good. I like it. So what's children's ministry like in the middle of a COVID-19 crisis? Hard.
Well, yes, it's definitely not as fun. Yeah, but it's Zoom meetings. So you still get to do Awanas with the kids and hear their verses, and they love that. They love getting to share their verse with the whole group of kids. So, and then Debbie and I have been, well, mostly Debbie, we did it together once. We've been dropping off like things to do at their houses, which has been fun, or like snacks or sidewalk chalk, things to help keep them busy. And yeah, then we've been doing Sunday morning, trying to come up with Zoom games. It's harder doing things virtually, having virtual games than actual.
It is. So. Yes, I'm doing youth on Thursdays, and the most stressful part of my week is like, what game are we playing over Zoom? And we've had a lot of fun doing it, like, because at the end of the day, at least with the junior hires, they just like being together. Like they're just having a good time making faces at each other on the screen and stuff. But trying to have something to get them going that is much harder over Zoom than it is in person. I had another question. So you were at seminary. You went. Oh, what's your degree from seminary? Is
ministry leadership.
Ministry leadership. So you have a heart and experience in children's ministry, a seminary degree in ministry leadership, and a call to the mission field.
Yeah.
You sound ready to go.
We're going to see what God does. So.
That's about as exciting as preparation could get. That is awesome. Well, you know, I think maybe we're about at the 20-minute mark, but, you know, you brought up Deuteronomy 6. That is something when I'm dedicating a baby, I'll frequently read from Deuteronomy 6. And I think Psalm 78 is the other place I turn, and it's that same, like this deep call for a culture to impart our faith to the next generation. And I look at like the second half of the 20th century was just so wacky compared to the rest of history, you know, where I think a father and a son in 1800, I don't know, I wasn't there, but maybe they were kind of a lot alike, like listen to the same music, have the same cultural experiences, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And but from the 60s on, that's not as true, you know, where there's like a gap, and that's why children's ministry is so important and youth ministry is so important. I think a big part of what we're in the process now in church culture is kind of trying to bring that gap back together and say children's ministry is something that really we should all be concerned with. In part, I think Psalm 78 says something about imparting the dark truths or deep truths or something like these weighty things to pass them on to the next generation of kids. So tell me, what are the tools that get used in children's ministry? Games,
the Bible, of course, lots of prayer.
Do you teach kids to pray?
Yeah.
How do you do that?
Well, you have to show them first.
Uh-huh.
And it's a lot of explaining, like God knows what you're thinking in your head and in your heart, and they don't always understand right away, but yeah. And
so are they repeating after you?
No.
No, you're not doing that. You're not like, dear God.
No.
Okay.
So some of our kids are awesome at praying, like Gianna and Louisa. They just can pray and pray. I'm like, wow. So yeah, that would be on their parents. Their parents taught them well. Yeah.
So games,
so
the Bible, praying.
Crafts. They like to color. Lots of coloring.
Mm-hmm.
And really, it's you're trying to teach the kids through multiple learning styles. So like if they're auditory, well, let's sit and have a conversation about this Bible story. And that, or auditory would be hearing. If they're what is it if you speak, I don't remember which one it is. If they like process better by talking, let them talk about it.
Like a verbal processor.
Verbal, yeah. And then if they are more creative, coloring would probably help them understand the story better or think about it more. And then a lot of kids, they just have to move. Kids have to move. So playing a game or doing some kind of like experiment kind of thing to get their like hands on it and help them like interact with the ideas behind the Bible story really helps them. So, and then songs too, lots of songs.
Yes. Arky.
Yeah.
Classic.
Yeah, kids love to sing and they have an amazing memory when it comes to songs. So,
you know, I one of the things that always challenges me about thinking about children's ministry is everything you just said is true of adults. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Some people are more kinetic and would be really helpful for them to get up and moving. And other people, you know, I think a flaw in me is like, I'm an auditory learner. So just sitting and listening to a lecture is how I learn. I don't need to take notes. If I hear a lecture on it, I've got it, you know, even more than reading and whatever. In the morning, I have the Bible app. I've got my Bible open, but then the Bible app is reading it to me and I don't fatigue as much. And I like listening, you know what I mean? Like it's helpful to me. And so the grown-ups are just grown-up kids. We all still have that like need to be engaged in all kinds with all of our senses and all of our learning styles and all that stuff. Well, what a joy that you have the freedom to do that. You know, I don't know what would happen if on Sunday morning I was like, well, there's tongue depressors and cotton balls in the pew in front of you. Everybody make a sheep. I don't think it would go over as well. We've gotten boring as we grew up and grew old. Yeah.
I guess adults have the capability of sitting still a little bit longer.
A little bit,
so we use that for like college classes. You know, you sit there for so long, and in seminary they become longer classes. So yeah,
maybe we should pass out fidget spinners in the back. Some kind of clickers that don't make
noise. That might help me. That's probably why I really like children's ministry, because I cannot sit still. I don't know if you've noticed, I've already been moving around so much. Yeah. So
That's why I still like playing in the worship team. Like, what else am I gonna do? Just that, like, when I'm playing in the
yeah.
worship team, I get to like, hit stuff and strum stuff and all like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. All right, man. Well, hey, we are lucky to have you, and we know it. Thanks for talking with me. And maybe we should say this: if somebody wants to feels a call or wants to see about working in children's ministry, you're willing to train them too. It's
Oh
not just,
yeah.
well, here's your class and a clipboard and go nuts. There's there's good tools and
Yeah.
help and training available.
Yeah. I would love to train people. And if you just want to come in, well, I guess when we actually have
Someday. Yeah.
children's stuff, just want to join in, just sit in the back and observe, that's perfectly fine too.
Mm,
If you want to join in on a Zoom thing and just see how we're interacting with the kids, you're more than welcome to do that. And yeah, to come and observe, and then I can teach you. We can meet together, pray about it. Yeah.
for sure. I always say, look, um, pray about it, and if God doesn't give you an audible no, it means you have to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's all there is.
you never know where God will take you when you just keep going through the doors that He has opened. So
Well, and I was a children's director and junior high and children for, I don't know, 8 years or so. And I had no idea about children's ministry. I always felt a call to youth ministry. I did not feel a call to children's ministry. I knew junior hires came from somewhere, but I didn't know where. And so like I was almost in charge of children's ministry before I had ever done any children's ministry. And learning from those Sunday school teachers that, like, my whole job was like ordering the curriculum. They were awesome. They certainly didn't need me. But watching them and learning from them, and then really falling in love with the kids and seeing the wisdom that can come out of an 8-year-old, and the
mhm.
amount of fun you can have on a Sunday morning, and
Yeah.
and all that really grew a heart. I enjoy it. My go-to move is whatever the story is, we act it out together. We just, all of us running
Yeah.
around and adding funny lines, and that's my go-to move. All right, Christy. Well, thank you so much for spending time with me. You're a delightful person, and we're lucky that you're at Lighthouse, and we're lucky that you're serving our kids, and so yeah, we're thankful for you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep. Have a
Okay.
awesome afternoon.
All right.
All right,
Bye.
Lighthouse. Have a great day.